Hello, I'm Ashley,
And I'm Andrea.
and welcome to Two Therapists and a Cocktail, keeping it real.
Hello, everybody.
Yay! Welcome back.
Yay. We are back. We're back and we're ready to talk. I know
Yes.
y'all thought that was good and spicy talking about infidelity last time. And so today, what we talking about, girl?
Girl, we talking about pornography.
Woo!
The shaming P.
The shaming P. People love to shame people about porn.
Oh, yes.
People love to shame people about porn.
Yes.
My gosh. What do you feel like? So we're going to really jump into it.
Yes.
What do you feel like your first experience was with porn?
Ooh, child. I was really young, by the way. Like 9, 10 young.
Woo!
9, 10.
Nice.
I remember my parents went to bed, and I don't know, I was just, channeling through the channels, and all of a sudden I see naked people, and I'm like, what is this?
You was watching HBO After Dark.
Yes. Yes, y'all remember when it was BT After Dark?
Baby,
I need a tip drill.
you be turning that volume all the way down. Eyes be glued to that TV like, whoa.
Girl.
And now we're really gonna show our age, because back in the day you used to have on the remote that return button.
Yes.
You just click that and you turn it back to the other channel. Baby, if you heard a stir in the house, you'd be like, click.
Yes. I remember one time the TV was on, whatever, and I heard my mama about to open her door, and I turned that TV so fast and hid behind the couch.
Baby, the fright. It's immediate.
Yes.
It's immediate.
Yeah.
Man. I remember, do you remember LimeWire? Where you download? Girl, LimeWire was another one. Man, you think these people out here tricking kids now. You would try to be downloading Nelly, you'd see...
Okay.
You say, oh, Nelly, as soon as you clicked on that thing, be like, oh my gosh, what is this?
LimeWire was the thing.
Yeah, it was. You'd be downloading crazy stuff. Man. But I feel like with pornography, it's one of those things, everybody has like a porn story, like when they first kind of like watched it or whatever. And no one's like, oh my gosh, I watched it and I was addicted. It's like, I watched it, I was nervous, I was scared.
Yes.
And I think like thinking about it like from that light side is what makes people like laugh about it. But pornography can also be like a little dangerous too. Yeah. Because like you said, you watched it early on. I feel like no one it might be rare if you discovered like pornography like in your late 20s or like your 30s or whatever. But when you watch that young, you start to create this expectation in your mind on what you believe sex is like. Yeah. Which is when it gets tricky, you know?
Yeah, because that was my thought being at the age. Of course, I was not having sex at that age. And yes, my mom had conversations with me about sex, but her way of putting it was two married people get together, and how sex can lead to having children. But no one really talks about sex being used for pleasure. And I really think that that's what pornography shows. But at the same time, it's not realistic. Like, if you really think about porn, it's scripted. People are acting.
Yeah.
But that being impressionable on such a young mind, you're thinking, oh, well, that's happening to her or that's happening to him.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? Does that, because they make it look like it's great.
And simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think, like, you think about it, like, on a deeper level, too, like, body image, like, oh, I don't look like that. So what does that mean for, like, if I'm able to provide pleasure to my partner? Oh, well, my partner doesn't look like that. Can he even, like, prepare that kind of pleasure for me? Should it be lasting this long? Should this be happening quicker than it is? Like, what if, like, we don't have, like, a bed full of roses? What if we don't have all of these candles and all of these things? Like, it creates a very distorted, like, expectation on what your relationship should even be like. Should everything be this passionate? And it really sets you up for failure before you even get started.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, like, not just like the things that you're putting on yourself, but you put like this undue pressure on your partner, which is when you also begin to fall into trouble in your relationships. Yeah. Which I think, you know, really feeds well into like that infidelity, because when you're watching porn, this is all visual. This is all about physical attributes. Yeah. And when you see people outside that maybe mirror some of those same physical attributes that you're seeing, and you're getting into that, ooh, I'm lusting after somebody else. Right. Because it's all a lust game. Like, that's really and that's not speaking and that's not speaking from no religious view, but that's literally what it is. It's created for lust.
It really is lust, because if you think about it, the stories behind it is kind of like, some of it is like, well, you meet somebody or somebody at the workplace, or somebody mama, somebody daddy, like some of these weird stories.
Yeah. And like, when you think about that, like, just like when we listen to music, just like when we're reading novels and all of these things, we're putting that into our systems, and we don't even realize how being immersed in something like that impacts us, impacts how we talk to people, impacts how we engage with people. Like, if you're thinking about, and I'm just going to say it, some of these perverted, like, scenes, these fantasies that they're creating, that's going to get in your mind. Yeah. And you're going to be like, maybe my girl's mama is fine, though. I mean, I hit, like, that's strange. That's strange. And you need to really be mindful. And this is like kind of transitioning into addictions. Yes. When you can't move past your day without thinking about watching it, or, you know, when you're in over sex drive because you're trying to like chase the high, you're trying to create something to get you off. When your mind is so immersed in that you can't even think straight, or you can't wait to get a hit, you're addicted. And that's really going into like that danger zone. And I think a lot of people don't consider that when they're watching pornography.
Right. Like you were saying, I agree. Like, when it interferes with your work, your relationships with your partner, or relationships with whoever, family members, friends, when you feel like you need that on a day-to-day basis, now we have a problem. Now porn has become a drug for you to survive, in a sense. You know, it could become really dangerous, and especially children watching that at a very young age. Yeah. Now you fall into, ooh, I want to see when my parents go to sleep tonight. What else am I going to see? What else am I think that I'm going to learn?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think you also have to be mindful if you have an addictive personality. And what I mean by that is, like, you kind of gain that kind of understanding, like, let's say mid-20s. That's when you really start to kind of notice some things about yourselves. And you start to realize everything I try, I obsess about, like diets. When you're really, really like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. And you begin to have this distorted thinking. Like, if I don't do this, something will go wrong. That's when you really know, like, I'm addicted to this thing. And if you are addicted to porn, one of the warning signs that you need to become aware of is, if you don't watch porn, you automatically think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be jittery all day. I'm not going to have a good day. You begin to have a lot of these catastrophizing thoughts.
Right.
And you have to be mindful of that. And I think pornography is one of those things where I'm going to say it's similar to heroin for your eyes, for your soul. And I say that because it's one of those really slow but very quick addictions.
Yeah.
Because you don't even think about it. It's kind of like, oh, that's a nice high. Ooh, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I probably won't think about it for a day or two. And then you find yourself revisiting those sites.
Yeah.
You find yourself trying to find sex scenes in movies.
Right.
You're trying to find yourself doing a lot of things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
If you're starting to curb your actions, you have to be mindful of that. One thing that I would say, like if people are struggling with porn addictions, it's one of those things that once you find that you are addicted, it's shameful to share.
Right.
You see how, like, in the beginning, we had no problem sharing, like, oh, yeah, girl, I watched porn. I was so nervous about it. But when you're addicted, you become a little bit shameful about it. Like, you don't tell anybody, like, you're watching it all the time. You're watching it at work. You're watching it on your break and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. When you get to this place and you're ready to change, you have to take yourself out of the dark. What I mean by that is you have to tell somebody. You have to say, hey, this is something that I struggle with. And that's a really, really huge step. But I guess before we get to like the road of recovery, what are some other things that you think people who might struggle with, you know, pornography, what do you think some of those traps are that get them to that space, to being addicted?
I think the traps are, you know, when you find yourself just going back to needing to watch it, that's gonna get you in a bind every time. You getting off work and it's like, ooh, I need to find a video. Which fantasy am I gonna be in today? You know, because what I've seen too with I haven't seen a lot of people addicted to pornography, but with those that I've seen, it's like now you feel like you need to live in a fantasy world. So now you paying people for sex and trying to reenact these scenes that you've been watching every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and now you caught up in another area. Now you not only watching porn, but now you paying for sex.
Yeah.
You know how much money you spending every time you pay somebody to have sex with them? You know?
I'm glad you said that. It is very much gateway into that life, right?
Yeah.
Like you start, you know, pulling away from maybe your romantic relationship if you're in one. And you begin like seeking out other things. Like I knew this, you know, one client, you know, the guy was presenting as heterosexual in his relationship, but then, you know, he was seeking out homosexual, transsexual, sexual experiences because of what he was watching in pornography. And I think that's another one of those flags in your mind when you're like, my partner's not doing it for me anymore. Right. Now I'm into this. Right. And, you know, in that, I think that's kind of borderline controversial. And I want to see like what you think of it. Yeah. Do you feel like maybe in that particular person's situation, what they were watching is actually what they're interested in, and maybe it just opened their world to something new? Or do you think, you know, it was just one of the traps of pornography?
You know, I think it just depends on the person, because, you know, there's a lot of people out here that are afraid to say, this is just who I am, that I want to be with someone that is trans or that is gay. Sometimes they are afraid to go to that point. So yeah, I think it just depends on the person, because there's a lot of people living lives out here that's truly not their lives. They want to portray a certain image to everybody else, but deep down inside, they know that they're probably attracted to the same sex, or they're attracted to someone that's in the trans community. And they're just afraid to say, this is who I am. And instead of saying that, they'd rather have these fantasies to themselves and or have sex with someone from the community, from the LGBTQ plus community, rather than it be out in the open. Like, there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that would require a lot of self-work, right? Like, you have to think about, is this a hidden desire that you plan to keep like hidden forever? Like, is this like your little secret that you're going to keep that? But the thing with secrets, especially sexual secrets, one day it's going to be revealed. If you're having a lifelong partner, they're going to find out some way, somehow. They're going to know about it. And so you really have to like consider like how well you think you're actually keeping this secret, because I guarantee it's probably not that well. But since we're on, the subject of that, how else do you think, like, outside of like a partner maybe pulling away emotionally or physically, like from their partner, how else do you think watching pornography impacts a romantic relationship?
That's a really good question. I think it can impact a relationship, a romantic relationship, by you may not feel like the same way you used to for your partner. You may want to have certain experiences outside of that relationship. And your partner could be looking like, okay, I don't understand what's happening. Why are you pulling away? What else have I seen? I've seen the paying other people for sex.
I've also seen where, and I think this is a little bit of a pitfall, and I think there are other ways to spice up your relationship. I've heard of some couples watching pornography together. I understand why you feel like that would work, right? Because you're like, oh, let's try this together. Let's see if we can like figure something out. But you got to be very careful once you introduce pornography in the relationship together, because what can happen is you begin to be watching porn more than you are engaging with each other sexually. And when you do that, you have to just be very, very careful if you're introducing it, and not like it's a one-time thing. Like, we're watching porn together, we get a little tricks and a few tips and all this and that. But when it starts to become a ritual and y'all are watching it all the time and you find that you're watching it more, you guys might actually be introducing an addiction into your relationship.
Yeah, so as we know it, introducing porn can be really detrimental to a relationship. I really think that instead of doing that, instead of introducing porn, how about we take some classes on intimacy? There's a lot of classes out there, y'all, that you can take where you and your partner can go and learn how to be more intimate. And when I mean intimate, I'm talking about learning how to just stare in each other's eyes, eye gazing. That's actually an exercise that you can do. That could look like just holding hands, this being close to each other, even if you're reading a book and they're playing a video game, or you on your phone and they on your phone. As long as you guys are in the same vicinity, it helps to build intimacy. Or cuddling helps to build
And not
intimacy.
everything has to lead to sex.
Right.
And that's what pornography almost teaches you. Like, the way to have this deep connection, like with this person, is to have like this crazy tantric sex. First of all, you're watching their first initial reaction, right, to each other. And there's sexual chemistry, right? But it doesn't show you anything after. It doesn't show you the relationship. It doesn't show you anything. And like, let's make it very clear. Like, you either want to jump off or you want a relationship. So you also have to be very realistic with yourself like that. Like, do I want a relationship just based off of sex? Or do I want a relationship with some kind of depth?
And that's it, right? With porn, there ain't no depth. It's bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. That's about it. And and research that I've done, a lot of these women that are being objectified in these movies, videos, whatever you want to call it, they ain't even getting nothing out of it. It's the men that they're coming, but the woman is just there. She don't get nothing, faking it. It's not real. And if you're doing multiple videos a day, there comes a time where you don't even feel nothing down there.
Because you're numb.
You're numb, and you don't even have a connection with this person.
No. And that's another thing. Like, if you, listen, spoiler alert, ding, ding, ding. If you are getting this same response, sir or ma'am, let me tell you something. She ain't just learning tips and tricks on how to move her leg backwards from behind her neck. She learning how to She acting too.
Yeah,
that's not real. That's not real. Yeah. And you're becoming processed in that. You're just like, oh, we're doing this, so this has to be the reaction I have to have, and it's not. It's not. Create a deeper intimacy between each other, and maybe you might have a sexual chemistry that is similar to that. But you don't have to watch that. It can. I think it can lead to disaster if you're not mindful of how instrumental it is in your relationship.
This is definitely a topic I think that a lot of couples need to have. Like, a part of intimacy too is having those conversations. What is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? Instead of bam, bam, thank you, ma'am, y'all go y'all separate ways. What are we getting from that?
Yeah. And I think a lot of reasons why people also watch porn is because they don't know what they like.
Right.
But get a book. Yeah. There are plenty of authors out there, and try it. Get you some Bengay, get you some ice, because you also don't know what you're doing, and you old.
That Bengay and ice,
because you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna hurt yourself, and that's another thing. Like, these people are trained actors, and you got to be careful out there, and you have to realize, like, you're robbing yourself of the experience to have a great emotional connection with somebody else if you're just focus on that sexual, physical connection.
Yeah.
It's going to rob you every time.
Yeah.
But let's also talk about how pornography and sexual addiction also correlate. Because I think that's also a thing that people don't also consider. Like, you could be rolling into, you just want sex all the time.
And
all the time.
That's when you have to start asking yourself the question, okay, what am I getting from this?
Yeah.
What am I getting from watching porn? What am I getting from having sex with random people? Because you could be addicted to porn, like we're saying, and you could be addicted to sex at the same time.
Yeah.
Or even separate.
Yeah. And you could be addicted to masturbation as well.
That
like
too.
It's a trifecta. Of things. And I think, like, also, like, when you're considering, like, masturbation, that is also another one of those things that robs you of that experience with your partner. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's emotional infidelity, but there's a caveat there. So I want to be very clear. I don't believe it's emotional infidelity, or even, I wouldn't even say it's physical infidelity. But it does walk a fine line if you're thinking about somebody else while you're doing that.
Yeah.
And that's also when you're in the danger zone. And what you should also consider, if you're masturbating and you're thinking of someone else who's not your romantic partner, you need to have a conversation with yourself to see, why am I thinking of this other person? 2, am I into this other person? And 3, do I actually need to talk to my partner about this?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why I keep saying, like, having the conversation. Have a conversation with your partner. But, Andrea, if we go back to this idea of shame, if that's involved, we may not know how to have the conversation with our partner and let them know about what we need and what we would like.
Yeah.
You know, because shame makes you feel this small. And shame makes you feel afraid. And it builds fear. And it even makes you feel negative about yourself, and you think negative about yourself.
And so if that was your partner, if you had a client who was saying, like, I know, like, my partner has this problem, what would be some tips that you would tell them, like, how they should process that from themselves? Because I think it's twofold, right? Like, I think it's the addiction. And supporting a partner with an addiction is tricky because you have to do your own work. And you also have to realize that addiction has nothing to do with you.
Not at all.
Nothing to do with you at all.
Not at all.
So you don't need to take it personal, which is also really, that seems really, really harsh to say that. But it ain't got nothing to do with you. So you don't have to take that on yourself. And literally, when I say that to clients, I say that in a way for them to feel like you don't have to hold on to that burden because it's not yours to carry.
Right.
It's not for you.
Don't put that in your basket.
Don't. Let your partner figure that out on their own. So that's the first part. And then the second part, you have to figure out, how do I support them in a way that I don't carry the burden, but I also hold them accountable if they want me to be their accountability partner. But with that, accountability does not mean punishment.
Right.
Doesn't mean that. And I think a lot of times, you know, when you're thinking about supporting your partner who has an addiction that has impacted you, you feel like you have to punish them. That's not what that means. Like, you don't get to say, oh, you over here being in your dark closet again. That's not being accountable. That's punishing them. That's reiterating that shame narrative. You say things like, hey, how are you feeling today? Like, are you feeling like a 1? Are you feeling like a 10? Do you need the space to talk about it? And I say this, if you are a partner supporting another partner with addiction, I'm going to go out on a limb here. You don't need to be their accountability partner. You're biased. You're biased. And you have to feel good about you and where you stand in the relationship. And I don't think you're there yet in the early stages of discovering that addiction. You need your own support.
Right.
Really.
Right. And believe it or not, y'all, there are groups for individuals that are addicted to porn, addicted to sex. And then there's also groups out there for partners or support systems for that person. Right? So if you're a spouse where you want to be supportive, but you don't know how to do that, there's groups for that. But this needs to be said, right? When you're in relationship with someone, I think we forget that we're individuals on our own journeys. And if we can understand that when our partners are just struggling or having a rough time, look at it that way. Like, you know what? I love this person. I want what's best for them. But they're on this journey of trying to figure out, how can I work through this addiction? How can I heal through it? Instead of, oh my God, they're watching porn. You disgusted. This and that. They're going through a personal journey just like you are. You might be struggling in another area. But this is just what they're struggling with. So
Yeah.
learning not
Yeah.
only to give yourself grace, but give them grace too. They need that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's very similar to like the affair story stages, right? Like you find out about this experience that's taking place. And I'm just very cautious when partners want to know all the nitty gritty, because sometimes they do take it upon themselves to feel bad about themselves. And it's like, oh, well, you're looking at chicks like this and I don't look like this. Is this what you're into now? But you have to think about maybe where it started from. Like maybe it started with them looking at magazines when they were younger. Maybe it started with them watching BET After Dark. Maybe it started with like just LimeWire, something so small. And then it just snowballs into things. And it's not even the image that they see anymore. It's just the act. It's just the, just like people who drink Coke all the time. It's just like, it just became second nature and they're just doing it. And when you are a partner in that role and this thing has happened to you, you have to decide, okay, how long do I want to be mad? Do I want to support them? Is this something that I don't think that I'm going to get over ever? And every time they're by themselves, am I going to be freaking out?
Right.
And so you really have to think about some safeguards here. And so what does that look like? I'd say in that first stage, just say all of your feelings. And even the partner who's struggling with the addiction, I'll say this, unless there's new information coming out, don't feel the desire to apologize all the time. You don't have to keep apologizing about the same act. And I think sometimes people do that to feel better. They feel better about themselves. Okay, I'm gonna keep apologizing. Don't keep apologizing. Like you've apologized, and unless you haven't laid it all out there, stop apologizing. And your partner also has to respect that too. And now, I also don't think it's necessary to emotionally abuse your partner for telling their truth.
Not at all.
You should not be doing that. Like you don't get to drag them. And you have to be very careful when you're having arguments about stuff like this. Because once it's out there, you can't really take that back. And you got to be mindful of saying things like you're perverted, you're disgusting, and all of this. The fact that they've shared that, I guarantee they've already thought that about themselves. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if your partner is coming to you with a challenge that they're going through, I agree with you. You have to be supportive, because guess what? Being vulnerable is one of the most hardest things we can do. And the thing is, if you're my partner or whoever, my friend, and I'm telling you that I'm going through this challenge and you're judging me and you're shaming me and you're making me feel a certain way, then who else can I turn to? Who else can I turn to if I can't turn to you?
Yeah.
And this is why some people find it hard to be vulnerable. They become traumatized by your reaction towards them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's all about setting the stage for tough conversations.
Yeah.
And if you are in a relationship where you cannot talk about tough things without y'all dragging each other, one or two things need to happen. Number one, y'all need to work on your communication, and y'all need to think of some fair fighting rules, and y'all need to mutually agree on that. Or two, y'all need to break up, because this is toxic. And you do not have to drag somebody in an effort to say, I disagree with you. When you're doing that, you're not playing fair, and that's not cool. But you have to be so mindful of that, and coming from a non-judgmental space. And if whoever is addicted, because let's be real, women can also be addicted to pornography as well.
Oh yeah.
We're not gonna make this a man addiction.
Right.
It's fair game.
It's anybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so when you're setting the stage for this tough conversation, the first thing that I would say is, what do you want to get out of this conversation? Let's already think as if we're going to have a solution.
Right.
Because if you're solution focused, then you guys can have a much easier conversation about this. But if you're problem focused, guess where you're going to stay? In the problem.
In the problem.
Y'all just going to be going round and round and round for hours. And you're going to be like, well, and then, but you do this. This isn't a pick and choose argument.
Right.
No. Let's stay focused on what we're talking about, and let's move forward with that.
Yeah.
But talking about, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I always tell my couples, when there's an issue that arises, focus on the problem. Do not steer in the direction of making it look like the person is the problem. Focus on the problem at hand. Why are we here? Why are we having this conversation? Because what we don't want to do is go into the blame game, like you were saying. But you do this, and you said that, and this and that, and do not do that. Stay what the problem is and figure out together, how can we tackle this?
Agreed.
Yeah.
And when also, like, what I think should be considered is, do I want to say that? I'm gonna
go there.
Make your expectations very small when you're talking about addictions. Because you can't say to your partner, I just want you to stop. Like, stop watching it. That's really hard. It's really hard to say that. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's going to hurt your feelings. But sometimes your feelings going to get hurt. And that's okay. That's okay. But make your expectations very small. Because things that have been building for years, because if anybody is addicted to pornography in 3 to 6 months, maybe that'll be fine to say, I want you to try to stop watching it 3 out of the 7 days of the week. Maybe that might be simple for someone with a short span of an addiction. But somebody who's been slowly building up a pornography addiction for 10 plus years, they're not going to be able to cut that off.
That's right.
And the likeliness, like, if you, just like with any addiction, if you are not consistent, if you do not have things of support, if you don't have a year's plan on how you plan to no longer be addicted to this vice of yours, you're probably going to fall into some things again.
That's right.
And that can happen with anything. Because the tricky thing about pornography is, okay, so you can be addicted to pornography, right? Okay, so I'm getting clean for pornography. But you also have to be very mindful of movies you watch, too.
That's
because
right.
that can also trigger you. And you also have to think about the songs you listen to. And you're like, oh, that's my jam. And then that can trigger you to another thought, which triggers you to another thought, which triggers you to another thought. And then you over here watching it again. And so it's a journey.
It is.
And so just think about all of those things that you're asking a person. Like, they got to get clean from watching porn. They got to get clean from watching certain videos. Right. And it's going to feel like your life becomes really constricted. Yeah. But you're also reintroducing how you view things, how you view the world. Because since you've been watching this addiction, your mind has changed.
Yes.
It's changed in every way you view things. And not to say, like, you're looking at somebody across the street and you're like, ooh, hot. Gotta get it in.
Right.
But it's likely that happens. And so I would say, if you're thinking about someone who's had an addiction for 10 plus years, maybe saying don't watch it for an hour might be the first good step. An hour. Yeah. And if they have reached that goal, then you congratulate them on reaching that goal, because it's going to be stair steps. This is a whole staircase.
And that's the thing about a journey, right? Is not just that person, but you as the partner, learning how to be patient with that person, because like you're saying, like, it's similar to any addiction. There's a chemical imbalance that's happening in the brain as to why this person is doing what they're doing. And
Yeah.
they may even need to figure out, okay, what are my triggers? What does that look like? That way they're
Yeah.
able to let you know. So when something happens, you'll be able to be more just patient with them.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Like you said, this is a journey. And if y'all get to a point where, okay, we've tried to do this on our own, y'all might need to pull in a professional now. You might need to pull in a therapist that specializes in pornography addiction, sex addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they could keep you accountable as well.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that, because I don't want anybody who's listening to think that this is just pornography. Like, oh, they're only like addicted to watching these videos and blah, blah, blah. Pornography goes deeper than that.
Yes.
And you might not be equipped to figure out the root of that problem, because it's about sexual context. It's about body image. It's about what you have created in your mind. This is now thoughts. This is now your philosophy.
Yeah.
And reworking those distorted thoughts, that's gonna take more than just swearing off pornography for a day or two.
Yeah.
It's so much more work than that. Because because think about all of the things that this pornography addiction has impacted. It's impacted your emotional relationship. It's impacted your physical relationship. It's impacted, maybe how y'all do things. Because if you used to be on time for everything, are you a couple hours late now because of your partner's addiction?
Yeah.
Because they just had to have a moment or two in the bathroom by themselves. Like, think about all of those things. That video isn't just doing that. Their mind is doing that. Their mind needs cleansing and work as well.
Yes.
You can stop anything. Just like you can stop drinking Coke, but you should also see a nutritionist to see what you can do to replace that. Because think about somebody who's addicted to coffee. They're going to get the shakes.
Yeah.
Because their body is rejecting that. They're needing it. And your mind is going to tell you need to do other things.
Right.
And you might find, which is why, sometimes when people stop watching porn, their sex drive, they just need sex all the time, because that's what their body has been craving, has been looking at. It's just endless sex.
Yeah.
And you might be tempted as the partner to supply that need. But you're rolling right into another addiction.
That is right.
Because addicts, once they're addicts, guess what? They're searching.
They're going to find something else.
Something to feel, something else. They might get the munchies for something else. Yeah. And you have to be mindful of that. And you might, if you don't have another professional, you might think, oh, the spark is back. Our chemistry is back. Nah, babe. Right. They done replaced that other addiction with you. So you got to be careful.
So this is why, right? So we've talked about figuring out what your triggers are. But now the next step is, what are some healthy coping skills in replacement of doing the behavior that we're trying to reduce? So we got to figure out, what is that? Is that going to be exercising? Is that going to be going for a walk? Is that going to be meditation or yoga? Or we have to figure out, what is the thing, the healthy thing, that's going to replace me going to watch porn, me masturbating, me going to pay people to have sex. We need to find out, what are we going to do? What are we going to do different? And like we're saying, if you don't know what that is, that's where a professional comes in and helps you to figure that out. Because this is just an example, y'all. If both I and Andrea are addicted to porn or addicted to sex, what may work for me may not work for her. It's not going to work for everybody. So we have to find a professional that can help us come up with a treatment plan specifically designed for you and your treatment.
Agreed.
So it needs to be taken seriously.
Got to do that.
Yep. Yeah.
It got to. And it's a patient process, y'all. It's a very patient process. And that is why each of you have to do your separate work. Because at one point, you will feel like it's too much. You will feel like you can't give to him, or he can't give to you, and or vice versa. Whichever way that it's in your relationship, you're going to bump heads on your journey at some point.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to have that separate support. So, I mean, sorry we made pornography a little bit ugly for y'all, but we also wanted you all to really know the dangers of it, though, because it does get a little tricky. Like, might it be fun to, like, pop on for a time or two? Like, oh, we're going to jazz that. Oh, I want to try that. Cool.
Yeah.
But also, be very mindful and have a very clear conversation with your partner. And it doesn't even have to take the sexual intimacy out of it, but just say, I want to make sure that if we watch this, this doesn't become a ritual. This isn't something that we're going to keep doing time and time again, because we can read a book, or we can just, talk about our own sexual fantasies. Let me tell you, the mind is so creative. It really is. Put some random words in a bucket, and y'all just pick them out and go at it.
Yeah.
Be creative. You don't need something showing you what to do, because your expectations are always going to try to match that up, and that's not cool to put on your partner either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we wrap,
So that's what I was saying at the beginning. Y'all, in Texas, in Houston, wherever you are, there's different workshops specifically designed to strengthen your relationship.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. There are workshops that can teach you how to be more intimate and what that looks like. And they even provide different exercises for doing that.
Yeah.
But watching porn may not be just the thing.
Yeah.
Because as we have said today, it's a gateway to other problems and other issues.
Yeah. You got to be mindful, y'all. One app that I would say, like, if you do struggle with pornography, or if you know someone who does struggle and has openly shared that to you and feels like you can be their accountability partner, because do not shame this person. Don't be like, oh, you was addicted to porn, so here you go. Don't do that. Let them just come on their own. But a really good app or a really good website for you guys to consider is Covenant Eyes, which is something that I suggest often to clients that struggle with pornography. This is something that, monitors your screen time, monitors the certain websites that you're going to, and also embedded in it is the capability to have someone serve as an accountability partner for you, which is something that you should consider, because sometimes you don't need an accountability partner who knows you. Sometimes you need someone so removed from your life who's going to be like, the only thing I worry about is your success. I don't really care what else is going on with you, but your success. And sometimes you need somebody like that in your life. So that's my spiel. That's what I have. I don't always provide numbers for y'all, but I can at least throw y'all this app.
There's a couple of really good shows that y'all can watch on Netflix, y'all. The first one I really enjoy because it really dives deep into our bodies, our minds, and our relationships. And so the name of that is The Principles of Pleasure. So it also talks about peeling back the centuries of taboos and misconceptions about female. Well, this is specifically for females, but female orgasms and things like that. Because, like we said earlier, we see these porn videos and it's like, oh, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And then when you're doing that, it's like, oh, this is not what I thought it was like. So I really like this show because it really peels back those taboos that we've learned from we were like kids. And then the other one is Sex, Love, and Goop. They have some really good, episodes on like how to build intimacy with yourself and with your partner. So those are really good shows to check out.
I love it. I love it. So what is some of the? I'm going to check out that Principles of wait,
the
not Pleasure Principle. That's Janet Jackson.
Ooh, Janet. The Principles of Pleasure.
The pleasure. I'm gonna watch that because I'm very interested to see like what that's about, because I think it is very taboo, the female orgasms, and I think some of our partners be confused in the beginning. So
and it really goes into these stubborn myths, about the women's body and things like that, and it's really good. Y'all need to check that out.
Check it out. So what are our numbers, girl?
Okay. So, we got to bring the numbers on, y'all. So, if you are in crisis, like right now, please call 911. Please don't hurt yourself. Please don't hurt nobody. Please. Call 911. But you can also call the National Suicide Line at 1-800-273-8255. And if you are in Georgia, you can call the Georgia Crisis and Access Line at 1-800-715-4225. And if you are in the lovely city of Houston, Texas, you can call 832-416-1177. And if you don't feel like calling, but you don't mind texting somebody, you can text the crisis line. You text NAMI, NAMI, to 741-741 to connect with a trained crisis counselor. And they are 24/7, y'all. 24/7 support. So definitely utilize those numbers if you need them.
Please, please. Well, until next time, I hope y'all learned something. I hope you can apply it, and y'all see us later.
Bye.
Bye.